Hey, Wonderhussy here. Pardon me, but I'm friggin' freezing cold. I'm damp. I'm chilled to the bone, and I might even be growing moss in my nether regions. That's right, I'm at Washington State's Olympic National Park. I'm way, way, way up in the, upper left-hand corner of the United States. Basically, if you drive as far north as you can, and then as far west as you can, that's where you'll find me. It's basically this giant friggin' coastal rainforest full of giant trees covered in moss and ferns and, well, RVs. You know me, I prefer camping just rogue out in the middle of the forest somewhere, but hey, I had a special opportunity. A friend of mine is the campground host at one of the campgrounds up here, and he invited me to come stay for free at his campsite. So I'm just sort of camped here at the side of the road. And I've been here for about, 2 days now, and it's been pissing rain ever since I got here, like just dumping rain. And it was interesting at first. You know, I'm from the desert, and I've been traveling through deserts for the last couple weeks, so it was kind of like, oh wow, rain, I'm in a rainforest, neat. And when I got here, my friend and I sat under his little canopy and had dinner, and it was cozy, but it's just so much friggin' water coming out of the sky that, well, I end up just getting in my bed and my cozy blankets and, oh gosh, listening to the sound of the rain on the roof. Ooh, it was cozy, and I slept really well. But today, the sun is out and all the clouds are gone. I think the sky's blue, so it's perfect weather to go exploring around and see some of the awesome stuff here, because gosh, even just driving around yesterday, this place is so amazingly beautiful. Oh yeah, the sun's out and the steam is arising as everything finally dries out, including me and my moldy nether regions. Now, I'm camping in a part of Olympic National Park called the Hoh Rainforest. And no, it's not that kind of hoe. It's H-O-H, which is the name of one of the local Native American tribes. And, well, I tried to go for a hike around the campground. There's some amazing trails. Like there's this trail called the Hall of Mosses that goes through this grove of super giant, ancient spruce trees, maple trees, all covered in moss, all this crazy stuff growing all over them, and cool little ponds and pools and creeks, and oh my gosh, it's just beautiful. But, well, it's right in the middle of the campground, basically, and it's one of the most popular parts of the park, so everyone and their Aunt Sally was there, and it was, well, it just wasn't a very good environment for shooting video, because I didn't really feel free to yak away to myself like I am now. And also, well, believe it or not, you have to wear a mask, or you're supposed to wear a mask, I guess, even outdoors on these trails. So it just wasn't very pleasant. And you know me, I'd rather be out in the middle of nowhere anyways. So I just drove right outside the park boundary and took some weird logging road or something. I parked my car in the sun and put my socks and boots on the dashboard to dry out, because let me tell you something, everything I have is sodden. I told you it was raining solid the first 2 days I was here, and I wasn't exaggerating. I mean, it was just steady rain. And, well, I'm sleeping in my car. I tried to stay as dry as I could, but unfortunately, one of my furry boots had a hole in the bottom of it, and so my socks got soaked. 2 pairs of my socks got soaked before I realized my boot was leaking. So now I'm wearing hiking boots. Even though it's a nice sunny day today, and I could probably just be wearing my flip-flops. But anyway, I left my car parked back there in the sun with all my stuff to dry out, and I decided to hike along this old logging trail, which is, well, there's nobody out here, which gives me the freedom to not have to wear a mask and blab away to myself as loud as I want. Finally, I can wax philosophical about this amazing temperate rainforest that we're in. That's what they call this, a temperate rainforest, which I guess is like, kind of like a tropical rainforest, but not as hot. You know, like a tropical rainforest is down in Costa Rica or Hawaii. Well, this is what's known as a temperate rainforest. And boy, let me tell you, I understand why it's called a rainforest now. Rain, rain, and more rain. I think they get something like 140 inches of rain a year in this part of the peninsula. And well, that's why everything's so green and lush and alive, but also, interestingly, dead. That's one of the things that I find most interesting about this environment is that, yeah, everything's moist and green and there's stuff growing out of everything, including the dead stuff, okay? There's this phenomenon called nurse trees where like when one of these big spruces blows over in a storm, which they do because they have really shallow root systems, I guess because there's so much moisture in the air, the trees don't really have to develop very deep roots to get to groundwater. They got all the moisture they need just coming in through the friggin' bark and their branches. So they have shallow root systems. Then these gnarly friggin' storms come blowing in off the Pacific Ocean. And these trees sometimes get blown over. And then the dead tree trunk is laying there all splintered. And it starts to rot away and decompose. But next thing you know, new trees and new plants start growing out of the dead tree. Which I think is, well, gosh, it's like a metaphor for something, you know? Like new life springing out of death. I don't know. I guess it's kind of, in a way, it's like the human condition, I suppose. I mean, I guess human life doesn't technically spring up out of death, but you know how it is. Like in our lifespans, we get older and we eventually pass away, but we sort of live on in a way through our offspring, which I guess is the same idea with these trees. Like even if one gets blown over in a storm, some little seed, maybe not from that tree, but from some other tree, will take root and grow out of, you know, out of its decay. Now, unfortunately, as someone who doesn't have kids and probably won't ever have kids, well, I guess I'm not going to live forever. When I go, everything about me goes. I'm the end of the line. But, well, hey, at least I have these videos as some kind of legacy. Anyway, I just hiked down into this creek bed, sort of dry creek bed, and there's a lot of really good examples of what I was talking about. So first of all, you can see there's all these dead trees laying here that have gotten knocked over in storms or whatever. But now they're just coated with moss, like nice, thick, juicy moss. Gosh, and it's just like a sponge. It's full of water. I mean, look at this. Here's another example. Here's a even bigger tree that's fallen down. And look, the end of it is already just covered with a super thick, I mean, really thick coat of moss. And look at how you can see the water is just beaded up on it. Everything is so friggin' moist here. I hope the word moist doesn't bother you. It's supposed to be one of those words that's like really polarizing. Like a lot of people just find that something about the word moist to be really creepy. So I hope you're not one of those people who is offended by the word moist, because I'm going to be using it a lot in this moist environment. But I guess that's why they call them nurse trees, because they kind of nurse new life from their decay. You know, in a really kind of grim way, that does remind me of human lives, because, well, babies kind of do that to mothers. They suck all the calcium out of them. And, well, nowadays, of course, women know enough to take calcium supplements, and, you know, there's ways to get around it. But back in the day, like prehistoric times, you had your babies. And I read something that was really interesting once, that the invention of dental hygiene did more to extend human lifespan than like any other invention. Simply because, I guess, biologically speaking, your teeth are really only there long enough to get you to produce offspring and raise them to an age where they can take care of themselves. You know what I mean? Like, what do you need teeth for after that? So, you know, like mothers have babies suck all the breast milk out, takes all the calcium out of their body, their teeth kind of deteriorate, or they did back in the day. And, well, once the kid's old enough to take care of itself, who cares if you lose all your teeth? You know, you're going to die soon anyways. So it's almost kind of the same thing with these nurse trees in a way. They're giving life to new plants through their own decay. Ugh, sorry if I'm being kind of grim and depressing on this hike, but, well, you know, I've got a few things on my mind. One of them is that the ground here is very slippery and I have to be careful where I walk. But no, seriously, I feel really weird being in this damp, moist, mossy rainforest, especially right now because, well, I'm shooting this video on August 22nd, I think. And, well, as we speak, there's a bunch of terrible wildfires raging. But there's a wildfire in particular raging right by my mom's house. You might remember I showed I showed a little sneak peek at my mom's cabin in the forest a few videos ago in my Becoming Wonderhussy Story of My Life video. Well, there's a terrible forest fire raging right up to her cabin. And as a matter of fact, she and my little sister, who's been staying with her, they both got evacuated. Mandatory evacuation. Fortunately, I think that particular wildfire is getting priority from the firefighters because there happens to be kind of a well-known, really ancient redwood grove state park nearby. And so they're trying to protect that state park. And by extension, well, my mom's house, luckily enough, is kind of in the shadow of that park. So fingers crossed her house doesn't burn down. But oh my gosh, I feel terrible for her. She and my little sister ended up going to my brother's house. So it was lucky for them that, you know, we have a very tight-knit family, and my brother only lives like an hour and a half, 2 hours from my mom. So my mom and little sis are staying with my brother and his girlfriend, and well, I'm sure it's a big comfort to them to know they have family to stay with, but you know, it's got to be really hard on my mom. She's probably freaking out right now. I can only imagine. I mean, last summer, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you might remember that last summer I got caught in a wildfire down at the beach. We were all camping on the beach in Northern California, and some idiot shooting off fireworks set the whole friggin' forest there on fire, and we almost got trapped in the campground. That was pretty scary getting out of there. Well, I can't imagine. My mom and sister had to pack like bug out bags and leave, and they didn't know if they'd ever be back. So I can't imagine what kind of stuff you would throw in a bag. I mean, it's gotta be really tough for them. Anyway, so it's tough for me to be up here at this national park enjoying myself, having a fine time, and complaining about how damp and moist and soggy I am when my mom's house might be in the middle of a blazing inferno. But, you know, now that I think about it, there was actually a wildfire burning up here, too. Up until a few days ago. I'm pretty sure the rains of the last few days put it out, but I think the road to that part of the park is still closed, so even in a super moist environment like this, well, fire's part of nature, you know? Like I said in one of my videos recently, I was camping and ranting. I was camping in an area that had burned a year previously, I think, and there was all this new growth coming out, little new flowers and stuff. Well, plants actually thrive on the ashes. Like there's some kind of special nutrients or something in burned matter that helps new life grow. So in a way, the wildfires are kind of related to these nurse logs in a way. It's just, well, it's just unpleasant for the people who are having to live through it. Anyway, I could stumble around this amazing forest all day long, looking at all these mossy trees and crazy roots and beautiful plants and listening to the birds chirp and just looking at all the amazing different shades of green. But, believe it or not, these awesome rainforests are only one part of this amazing national park. There's also a bunch of really amazing, rugged coastline, you know, like crazy foggy beaches. Although I guess if it's sunny today, they might not be as foggy as they might normally be. But yeah, there's a bunch of beaches up here. So, I mean, we're on the friggin' Olympic Peninsula, right on surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, basically. So I really want to go check out a beach because I haven't been to the coast in, well, I guess it's only been a couple months, but you know, for the last 2 weeks, I've been camping on my own in like the southeastern Oregon desert and also the deserts of central and northern Nevada. So I've been in the desert for the last 2 weeks, and then the 2-3 weeks before that, I was stuck in Vegas. So I've been in the desert for 5 friggin' weeks, man. This forest, I think that's why it's making such an impression on me. Like, this is the polar opposite from what I'm used to. Like, everything being green and alive. I know a lot of you watching this are probably like, oh, what's the big deal? This is like friggin' on steroids. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the desert and I appreciate the subtlety of life in the desert, you know? The tiniest little wildflower in the desert is like, wow, a big deal because it's so unexpected. Here, you know, good luck being one tiny little flower. There's so much else going on. But I love that. I love the extremes, you know, going from one to the other. And then going to the coast is like, well, a whole nother environment that I'm not used to. So I definitely want to go check out some beaches. But before I go to the beach, there's a couple errands I have to run in the nearest town. Oh my gosh, yum, blackberries. I love blackberries. A little sour. I guess this part of the forest hasn't gotten quite enough sunshine yet. I don't know if it ever will, but man, those berries must have a really short growing window. Anyway, I gotta get a couple things in the nearest town. First, I gotta get some new camp fuel because I didn't realize I have one of those little backpacking stoves, like a Primus stove that just screws right on top of the fuel canister, right? I mean, well, it did on top of this fuel canister. This is the one I was using, which is Coleman propane butane mix, and you just screw this right on and then cook your food. Well, I'm running real low on that stove fuel. Honestly, I like to use my BioLite camp stove, which is the one where you just put little twigs in it and start a fire that way and boil water just using twigs. But unfortunately, all the wood here is way too soggy to use that stove. So I'm relying on my fuel stove, and I ran out of fuel. They didn't have any of this at Walmart. And then I even went to a second store. I thought this would be the same thing. This is isobutane, but apparently it doesn't work. I don't understand how one kind of gas works and one doesn't, but when I screwed this on and tried to light it on fire, it really wouldn't catch fire very well. So I'm gonna go back to the store and see if I can return this and, well, see if they have anything that will approximate this. But more importantly, I think I need to get some Baileys because, well, you know, I want to go sit on the beach and have some hot cocoa with Baileys. That's what I love when I'm in a cold, damp, foggy environment. Which, well, like I said, it's sunny today, so it's probably going to be sunny on the beach too, but hey, I still want some Baileys and cocoa. Oh gosh, actually got so sunny, I had to take my shirt off and change into something a little more comfortable. Go figure. Just when I want it to be cold and misty, so I can sit on the beach drinking hot cocoa, it gets hot and sunny. Hey, but that's okay. Anyway, let's go check out this town, man. This town is a trip. Oh my gosh! If it's not one thing, it's another. I've been on this road trip for just about 2 weeks now. 2 weeks and a day. And it just seems like it's been cursed from the very friggin' beginning. Wouldn't you know it? I drove into town to get some new camp fuel and some Baileys so I could go to the beach. And I was really looking forward to doing that and to showing you guys that amazing little town. Because, oh my God, believe me when I say it's a weird town. But guess what? If you've been following my cursed progress on this cursed trip, you might remember that last Saturday, today's Saturday, last Saturday, my rear window, I accidentally rolled it down and it got stuck when I was out in the Alvord Desert. Thankfully, I had a friend out there at the hot spring who helped me get it back up, which we did. We got it rolled up, and well, by golly, I put a piece of cardboard and a piece of duct tape over the switch here so I wouldn't accidentally roll it down again. You know, I never really roll my back window down. It's no big deal. I'll just, you know, leave it covered. Now, I knew I probably should have disconnected the fuse, but I don't know. Then I have to look it up and figure out the fuse diagram and move all my stuff. It just seemed complicated. I'll just put a piece of tape over it. Well, just as I was driving into town, I stopped to take some B-roll photos of this shipwreck memorial. There was a really kind of famous Russian shipwreck out there back in 1800. Anyway, or 1808. Anyway, I stopped to take pictures of this shipwreck, and, you know, I cut the engine, I went over, I'm taking pictures. Then I came back to my car, and I noticed the rear window was down. And moreover, you know, I clicked the car open, I noticed that the door locks were locking and unlocking repeatedly by themselves without me touching anything. And I looked at all the switches, and, you know, there's nothing hitting the door unlock or lock buttons. It's just happening on its own. And it's the darndest thing. Anyway, long story short, I called my friend at the campground who was an electrician back in the day, so I thought he might know. He had me check the battery, and I put in my battery tester, and the battery level was kind of low. It was like 12.26 volts, and it shouldn't be like that. You know, I checked the battery not too long ago, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, and it was fine. Long story short, I had to figure out what to do. I'm in this tiny little town of 3,000 people that there's probably some kind of mechanic, but I don't know if there's like an electrical guy. I could go back into the forest where there's barely even any cell signal and see if my friend could help me figure it out. But, you know, it's dark back in there. We don't have tools. There's barely any cell signal, like I said. And if something happens, I don't want to have to get towed all the way out of there. You know what I mean? So I thought going back into the forest is not a smart idea. And staying here in this little 3,000 person town is not a good idea. Well, the only thing I can think of is, thankfully I've got a lot of friends and, you know, people who watch my channel in various towns in the area. And I knew somebody had told me there was a mechanic in Bend, Oregon that was willing to help me last Saturday when my window was stuck down. I didn't end up needing his services, but I thought, oh, okay, well, I could drive to Bend, but Bend is pretty far from where I am. I'm closer to Portland, and I happen to have a pretty good friend who lives in Portland. Actually, an ex-boyfriend. Really a nice guy. And every time I pass through, he always invites me to stay. Like, he's super cool. And of course, I don't want to impose on him and his girlfriend, especially, you know, like, it's an awkward situation. But I really didn't know what else to do. So I texted him because he's lived in Portland for many, many years and he's got a big network. And I asked him if he knew anybody who did auto electrical stuff. And he said he does know people in Portland and that I was welcome to come down and park in his driveway. So, even though I drove all the way up to the Olympic Peninsula to shoot some videos and stay in the forest for a few days, I have to leave already without having made a single video. So I drove all the way up here basically for nothing. See what I mean when I say this trip is friggin' cursed? I'm not sure, man. What is going on with 2020? First of all, let me just preface all this by saying, yes, I'm having first world problems. Boo-hoo, I'm having electrical issues with my car. It's not the end of the world. I don't have COVID. I didn't lose my job. You know, I still have a roof over my head. Everyone's okay. My mom's house hasn't burned down yet. It's just, I don't know, man. It's kind of disheartening. I mean, I've been trying not to let this whole quarantine situation get me down, despite the fact that, yeah, it's, you know, it's made me kind of lonely and weird because I don't really interact with as many people as I normally used to, I guess. I don't know. It's just made me kind of depressed. And so I've been fighting that. Like, why would I let circumstances make me depressed? You know, I'm lucky I don't have COVID. I didn't lose my job, all those things I just said. You know, I'm still free to travel about and do my thing. So that's what I've been trying to do, you know, travel around and do my thing. And it just seems like something out there doesn't want me to, you know? Anyway, this is all just self-indulgent whining. I'm sorry about that. So everything's cool. I called my poor friend back at the campground. Hey, listen, you know, I appreciate you offering to help, but I don't think there's anything you can do. I'm gonna have to leave early. I'm sorry. And he was very understanding, very kind. So, hey, at least I got to spend a couple rainy nights at his campsite. So now I'm headed to Portland, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this are probably like, no, Wonderhussy, don't go to Portland. That's where all them communist Antifa are. But that's only downtown. You know, I stayed in Portland on my way up here, ironically enough. I was just in Portland on Thursday. Anyway, I still have a 4-hour drive ahead of me. 3.5 now. I've been yakking so long, so I better stop talking and just concentrate on the road before something else goes wrong that makes my electrical issue look like nothing. See you in Portland.